Hello, Psychic Readings by Brandy here, and I want to talk to you today about our friend Pamela Coleman Smith, aka Pixie, Miss Pixie, Pamela Coleman Smith. Her birthday is on February 16th. I always like to do a little shout out to her every year. If you've taken my tarot classes, we know all about Pamela Coleman Smith. We like to honor our ancestors. Pamela Coleman Smith, the illustrator behind the Rider Waite Smith tarot deck. This was the first mass produced, mass printed tarot deck in the world. It was made available to international crowds. And Pamela Coleman Smith did all of the illustration work for this deck. Although the Rider Waite team really dictated how she painted the major arcana, she still had some liberties. She had free range for the minor arcana. And one of the reasons, if you've ever taken my tarot class, we talk about pips, is because Pamela Coleman Smith really set the standard for that minor arcana. And she's really the reason why we're kind of looking out for pip cards in decks if we want good quality, illustration work in a deck. So, one of the things I like to talk about is how we can identify that we have a Pamela Coleman Smith deck. So it's going to be a Rider Waite Smith deck. If you're not seeing the Smith on the deck, you can flip it over or look and see if her name is listed. I have one deck where there's just kind of a blurb that's listed about her. But let's say we take out a tarot card. All of her illustrations have her signature right somewhere hidden. And you can see it looks like a staff with some swirls around it, but it is actually a P, a C, and an S. And this is her unique signature on her particular illustrations for the tarot deck. So, what else can we do to learn about this phenomenal um, icon, really a cultural icon? So she really rose to the height of her popularity right at the end of the 1800s, the very beginning of the 1900s. She spent a lot of time in between London and Jamaica. She also spent a lot of time in multiple social circles. So she was not only with kind of like the bohemian artistic crowd, she also spent time in her community putting on puppet shows, acting as a storyteller, someone who engaged in folk culture. She really had her hand in all kinds of illustration projects and was very, very well known and well loved. She also, not only is it important for me to talk about her movement between geographic locations, she was more than likely multiracial. And at the time, in the US, it would have been the Jim Crow era. But in London, people were still using passing to survive. And so I do want to acknowledge that she did pass also penniless. And she also had a roommate. So more than likely, she was queer as well. Why do I say that? Well, because, if you think about how we navigate society, opportunities we're given, things that are also not afforded to us based upon beliefs certain people might have, especially people who are wealthier or who are distributing flow of cash. I think it's important to remember that she is just a creative force, and all of the work that she did during her time. On this earth, I just think is so impressive. And to understand that, her name was buried. Her identity was hidden, up until like she was kind of rediscovered like in the 70s by people who were doing more feminist research. And then really her popularity and our understanding of her kind of blew up within like the past 10 years or so. So we've got this book, The Queen of Wands. This is kind of like more of a graphic novel, talking all about her identity, her life. It is a really interesting graphic novel. So this is a quick read. This is not one that's going to take you a long time, but this was gifted to me as a friend. It'll tell you a little bit about her. And then I also have this book that's super impressive. It is called Pamela Coleman Smith, The Untold Story. This sucker is huge, okay? We've got a ton of her works, her illustrations, lots of, she even did like illustrations for sheet music. There are lots of letters and notes that she wrote in here. So you get really to see kind of how her personality shows up in private conversations, as well as like poetry that she's written and all of the different types of illustrations that she found joy in creating. So I really enjoy, looking through her eyes when it comes to her craft, because she is someone who loved combining storytelling, art, puppetry, fortune telling, tarot, psychic work, esoteric knowledge, archaeology, Kabbalah. She had ancient Egyptian knowledge. She also would blend like Jamaican or Yoruban folklore and knowledge into some of her works. And so she was just a fascinating, fascinating person. And I like to put a shout out to her every February 16th in hopes that we can keep her memory alive. We can learn more about her. We can spread the good word. So if you are someone who loves tarot and maybe you're learning tarot, make sure that you're understanding part of the culture behind tarot and the movement that it is. Thanks for joining me today, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Take care.